Welcome back. Before we begin tonight's journey, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling us where you're listening from. I always enjoy seeing how far these stories travel, and your support helps more history lovers discover these relaxing journeys into the past. Now dim the lights, settle into a comfortable position, take a slow breath, and allow the noise of the day to slowly fade into the distance. Tonight we travel into one of America's most fascinating unsolved mysteries, a story filled with hidden treasure, secret codes, lost fortunes, and a puzzle that has challenged treasure hunters, historians, mathematicians, and cryptographers for more than 2 centuries. Somewhere in the hills of Virginia, if the legend is true, a vast treasure may still be waiting, buried beneath the earth, hidden from sight, protected not by locks or guards, but by a secret code, a code that few have understood, and that many believe may never be fully solved. The story is known as the Beale Treasure Mystery. Perhaps you've heard whispers of it before. A mysterious man named Thomas J. Beale, an iron box left in a Virginia inn, 3 encrypted messages, and a hidden fortune supposedly worth tens of millions of dollars today. Gold, silver, jewels, all concealed somewhere in the American landscape, waiting, silent, undiscovered. The story sounds almost too extraordinary to be true, and perhaps that is why it has endured for so long, because even after generations of searching, no one knows for certain whether the treasure ever existed at all. Was Thomas Beale a real adventurer who uncovered an immense fortune in the American West? Did he secretly transport that wealth across thousands of miles and bury it for safekeeping? Or was the entire tale an elaborate hoax designed to captivate the public? Tonight we will explore the mystery slowly and carefully, not as sensational treasure hunters, not as conspiracy theorists, but as travelers stepping into the world of early 19th century America, a world of frontier roads, remote settlements, long journeys on horseback, and vast regions that still felt mysterious and unexplored. As with many great mysteries, the story begins long before the puzzle itself appears. To understand the Beale treasure, we must first understand the America in which it was supposedly hidden. So let us travel back in time, back to the early years of the 19th century. Imagine the United States around the year 1820. The nation is still young. Only a few decades have passed since the American Revolution. Many of the people living at this time can still remember stories from that struggle. Some fought in it themselves. Others grew up hearing firsthand accounts from parents and grandparents. America is expanding rapidly. New towns appear every year. Roads stretch farther west. Settlers move beyond the older coastal regions. The frontier continues pushing into territories that remain unfamiliar to many Americans. For people living along the eastern seaboard, the nation already feels enormous. Yet compared to the country we know today, much of the landscape remains largely unexplored. Imagine opening a map from this period. Large areas are known only imperfectly. Mountain ranges create barriers to travel. Forests stretch for hundreds of miles. Rivers serve as major highways connecting distant communities. Information moves slowly. News travels on horseback. Letters may take weeks to arrive. The pace of life is entirely different. There are no automobiles, no telephones, no railroads connecting every major city. Travel requires patience and often courage. Imagine standing on a dusty road in Virginia during the early 1820s. A wagon creaks slowly past. A horseman rides toward a distant town. Farmhouses dot the countryside. Smoke rises gently from chimneys. The landscape feels peaceful. Yet beneath that calm surface lies a spirit of opportunity. Many Americans believe the future lies farther west, beyond the mountains, beyond the frontier, beyond the lands most people have never seen. The idea of discovery captures the imagination. Stories circulate constantly. stories of fertile land, stories of opportunity, stories of rivers, forests, and distant territories waiting to be explored. And perhaps most exciting of all, stories of hidden wealth. The dream of discovering treasure is hardly new. For thousands of years, people have imagined finding lost fortunes, ancient gold, forgotten jewels, buried riches hidden by time and circumstance. Such stories appear in nearly every culture, and America is no exception. The early 19th century is an age of exploration. Hunters venture deep into wilderness regions. Traders travel enormous distances. Surveyors map unfamiliar territory. Adventurers search for opportunity wherever they can find it. Many journeys begin with practical goals, yet some evolve into legends. The Beale Treasure story is one such legend. But before we reach the treasure itself, it helps to understand why such stories became so powerful. Imagine spending an evening in a small Virginia tavern around 1820. The room glows with candlelight. Travelers sit around wooden tables. Conversations drift through the air. A merchant discusses recent news. A farmer talks about crops. A traveler describes distant landscapes, and somewhere in the room someone begins telling a story. Perhaps it concerns a hidden mine, or a lost cache of gold, or an explorer who vanished while searching for fortune. The details hardly matter because stories like these spread quickly. People are naturally drawn to mysteries, especially mysteries involving treasure. The possibility that immense wealth might exist just beyond the next hill has always captured human imagination, even when the chances are small. Even when the evidence is uncertain, the dream itself remains powerful. As America expands westward, treasure legends become increasingly common. Some are based on real events, others grow from rumor and speculation. A few emerge from misunderstandings that become larger with every retelling. Yet all of them share something important: hope, the possibility that something extraordinary remains hidden, waiting to be discovered. Imagine traveling through Virginia during this era. The rolling hills, the forests, the rivers winding through the countryside, the small towns connected by rough roads. It is a landscape filled with beauty, but also with secrecy. Countless caves exist beneath the hills. Remote valleys remain difficult to access. Large sections of countryside are sparsely populated. If someone wished to hide something valuable, there would be many places to choose from. And according to one of America's most famous legends, that is exactly what happened. Somewhere in Virginia, at some point in the early 19th century, a vast treasure was supposedly buried. Not a small collection of coins, not a simple chest of valuables, but an enormous fortune. One so large that people would spend generations searching for it. One so valuable that even today it continues inspiring treasure hunters. And protecting the location of this treasure were 3 mysterious documents, 3 coded messages, 3 encrypted texts filled with numbers, messages that seemed impossible to understand, at least at first. Imagine holding such a document in your hands, a page covered entirely with numbers. No obvious meaning, no clear instructions, just rows upon rows of figures. To most people, it would appear meaningless. Yet somewhere within those numbers, if the story is true, lay directions to a hidden fortune. A fortune waiting beneath the Virginia soil. The mystery would eventually attract amateur codebreakers, professional cryptographers, historians, writers, mathematicians, and dreamers from around the world. Some became convinced the treasure was real. Others believed the entire story was fictional. The debate continues to this day, and that is what makes the Beale Treasure Mystery so fascinating. Not merely the possibility of treasure, but the uncertainty, the unanswered questions, the delicate balance between history and legend. As our journey begins tonight, we stand at the edge of that mystery. The treasure has not yet appeared. The coded messages remain unread. Thomas J. Beale has not yet entered our story. For now, there is only the setting: a young nation, a restless frontier, a landscape filled with opportunity, and somewhere beyond the horizon, a mystery quietly waiting to unfold. The roads of Virginia stretch into the darkness. The forests sway gently in the night breeze. Travelers rest at roadside inns. Horse hooves echo faintly along distant paths. And somewhere in the early American frontier, the first chapter of the Beale Treasure Mystery is about to begin. So settle in, relax, and let the sounds of the modern world drift away. Because our journey into one of America's greatest treasure legends has only just begun. As we continue our journey tonight, let us remain in Virginia. The year is somewhere in the early decades of the 19th century. America is growing, changing, expanding in ways that would have been difficult to imagine only a generation earlier. The young republic stretches farther west each year. New roads appear, new settlements emerge, and with every passing season, more Americans venture into lands that were once considered distant frontier. Imagine standing atop a gentle hill in central Virginia. The morning sun has just begun to rise. A light mist hangs over the valleys below. Fields of corn and wheat shimmer beneath the first golden rays of daylight. Small farms dot the landscape. Wooden fences trace property lines across rolling hills. In the distance, smoke rises from stone chimneys. The scene feels peaceful, almost timeless. Yet beneath this tranquility, the nation is in motion. People are constantly arriving, constantly leaving, constantly seeking new opportunities. Virginia itself is already one of the oldest and most established parts of the United States. Its history stretches back more than 2 centuries. Generations have lived and worked here. Yet even in Virginia, much remains untamed. Dense forests cover large portions of the countryside. Remote valleys remain isolated. Roads are often rough and difficult to travel. The modern conveniences we take for granted simply do not exist. A journey of 50 miles can require an entire day. A journey of several hundred miles becomes a major undertaking. Imagine preparing for such a trip. A horse must be fed and cared for. Supplies must be packed carefully. Food must be carried. Weather must be considered. A traveler cannot simply stop at a gas station or hotel along the way. Every journey requires planning. Every journey carries uncertainty. This reality helps explain why roadside inns become such important places in early America. These establishments serve many purposes. They provide food, shelter, news, conversation, and occasionally they become the settings for remarkable stories. Travelers arriving at an inn bring more than luggage. They bring information, news from distant towns, stories from the frontier, rumors of opportunity, and sometimes tales that seem almost unbelievable. Imagine entering such an inn after a long day of travel. The warmth of a fireplace greets you. Candles flicker against wooden walls. The scent of fresh bread and cooked meat drifts through the room. Guests gather around tables. Some discuss politics, others discuss crops. Still others exchange stories from the road. The atmosphere feels welcoming, comfortable, a place where strangers can briefly become companions. One such community exists in central Virginia, a growing town known as Lynchburg. Today, Lynchburg is a well-known city, but in the early 19th century, it is still developing, still finding its place within a rapidly changing nation. Situated along the James River, Lynchburg serves as an important center for trade and transportation. Merchants pass through regularly. Farmers bring goods to market. Travelers moving between eastern cities and western territories often stop there. The town becomes a crossroads, a meeting place where people from many different backgrounds encounter one another. Imagine the streets of Lynchburg around 1820. Horse-drawn wagons move slowly through town. Shopkeepers open their doors for business. Blacksmiths work beside glowing forges. The sounds of hammering echo through the morning air. Children run between buildings. Farmers negotiate prices. Merchants unload goods. Life moves at a steady pace, neither hurried nor slow, simply following the rhythm of the era. Among the town's most important buildings are its inns and taverns. These establishments become gathering places for travelers from across the country. A person might arrive from Richmond, another from Tennessee, another from Kentucky, yet another from territories even farther west. Each brings stories, and stories often travel farther than the people who tell them. Imagine listening to conversations in one of these inns. You might hear about newly discovered land, about opportunities in distant territories, about political debates unfolding in Washington, or perhaps about something more mysterious, a rumor of hidden wealth, a forgotten mine, a lost shipment of gold. The American frontier seems particularly fertile ground for such tales. After all, enormous portions of the continent remain only lightly explored. People know that valuable resources exist. Gold has been discovered before. Silver has been discovered before. Natural wealth lies hidden beneath mountains, forests, and plains. The possibility that someone might stumble upon a fortune feels entirely believable. And where there is the possibility of treasure, there will always be stories. Some stories disappear quickly. Others survive for generations. A rare few become legends. The Beale Treasure would eventually become one of those legends. But before legends emerge, they usually begin with ordinary people, ordinary places, and seemingly ordinary events. Imagine a traveler arriving in Lynchburg after weeks on the road. His clothing shows signs of long journeys. Dust covers his boots. The sun has weathered his face. Perhaps he carries little more than a few belongings and a horse. Nothing about him appears unusual at first glance, yet sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin with the most ordinary arrivals. As the years pass, Lynchburg continues growing. Its importance increases, trade expands, travel becomes more common. The town connects Eastern America with the expanding frontier beyond the Appalachian Mountains. The mountains themselves remain a powerful presence in American life. Imagine looking westward toward the Blue Ridge Mountains. Their peaks rise gently against the horizon, covered in forests, wrapped in morning mist, beautiful, mysterious. For generations, such mountains represented both opportunity and challenge. Crossing them required effort. Crossing them meant entering a different world. Beyond the mountains lay regions many Americans had never seen, places where fortunes might be made, where new lives might begin, where adventure awaited. The frontier exerted a powerful pull upon the imagination. Young men especially often dreamed of exploration, of discovery, of journeys into unknown territory. Some became hunters, some became traders, some became surveyors. Others simply followed opportunity wherever it appeared. The America of this period rewards ambition, or at least it seems to. Success stories spread quickly. Tales of individuals transforming their fortunes inspire countless others. Most people, of course, never discover hidden wealth. Most live ordinary lives. They farm, raise families, operate businesses, build communities. Yet the dream remains. The possibility that something extraordinary lies just beyond the horizon. The possibility that tomorrow might bring unexpected opportunity. Imagine sitting beside a fireplace on a winter evening. Outside, snow falls softly across the Virginia countryside. Inside, travelers share stories while flames dance in the hearth. One person describes distant mountains. Another recalls encounters with frontier wildlife. A third mentions rumors of mineral wealth discovered somewhere far to the west. The details become blurred. The story changes slightly with each retelling, yet listeners remain fascinated. Because stories of treasure offer something powerful, not merely wealth, but possibility. The promise that the world still contains mysteries waiting to be discovered. In many ways, early 19th century America feels perfectly suited for such legends. The nation is young. The frontier remains vast. Exploration continues. Maps remain incomplete, and countless opportunities seem to lie hidden within the landscape. Somewhere among those opportunities, according to legend, a group of adventurers would make a discovery unlike any other, a discovery involving gold, silver, and riches beyond imagination. The story would eventually lead back to Virginia, back to Lynchburg, back to a quiet inn where an unusual traveler would arrive carrying secrets that would puzzle generations. But that traveler has not arrived yet. For now, the roads remain open. The frontier continues expanding, and the stage is quietly being set for one of the greatest treasure mysteries in American history. The sun slowly sets behind the Blue Ridge Mountains. Shadows lengthen across the countryside. Lanterns begin glowing in distant windows. Travelers seek shelter for the night. The roads grow quieter. The town settles into evening. And somewhere beyond the horizon, Thomas J. Beale is moving closer to the story, closer to the mystery, closer to the treasure that may or may not exist. And our journey is only beginning. The evening settles gently over Lynchburg. Lanterns glow in the windows of homes and businesses. The sounds of wagons gradually fade. Shops close their doors for the night. And travelers arriving late seek food, warmth, and a comfortable place to rest. For many people, it is an ordinary evening, one among thousands, the sort of evening that history rarely remembers. Yet sometimes history begins in such moments, quietly, without announcement, without anyone realizing that a story destined to survive for centuries is about to unfold. Imagine standing outside one of Lynchburg's inns around the year 1820. The streets are illuminated by scattered lantern light. Horse hooves echo softly against packed earth. A cool Virginia breeze moves through the town. Inside the inn, guests gather around the fireplace. Some speak in low voices. Others sip coffee or ale after long days of travel. The atmosphere is relaxed, comfortable, familiar. Then a traveler arrives. At first glance, there appears to be nothing remarkable about him. He is simply another man on the road, another visitor passing through town. Yet according to the legend, this traveler will eventually become one of the most mysterious figures in American history. His name is Thomas J. Beale, or at least that is the name history remembers. The truth is that very little can be confirmed about him. No detailed portrait survives. No extensive collection of letters. No personal diary explaining his thoughts. Almost everything we know comes from a story published years later. A story that some believe completely and others doubt entirely. This uncertainty is part of what makes the mystery so fascinating. Imagine meeting Beale for the first time. He appears confident, polite, well-spoken, the sort of man who quickly earns respect. According to later accounts, he is neither wealthy-looking nor poor. He dresses neatly, carries himself well, and seems accustomed to travel. Nothing about him immediately suggests hidden treasure. Nothing suggests secret codes. Nothing suggests a mystery that will survive for generations. Yet first impressions can be misleading. Imagine Beale taking a seat near the fire, removing dust from his coat after a long journey, perhaps exchanging a few words with fellow travelers, perhaps quietly observing the room around him. The details remain unknown, but the setting itself feels easy to imagine. The warm glow of candlelight, the crackling fireplace, the scent of wood smoke drifting through the air. Outside, darkness settles across Virginia. Inside, travelers prepare for another ordinary night. According to the legend, Beale eventually becomes acquainted with a local businessman named Robert Morris. Morris is an important figure in the story, respected, reliable, trusted within the community. He operates an inn known as the Washington Hotel. Like many innkeepers of the era, he meets countless travelers. Most pass through and are quickly forgotten. A few leave lasting impressions. Thomas Beale appears to be one of those few. Imagine Robert Morris, a practical man, accustomed to dealing with people from many different backgrounds. He hears stories every day, merchants discussing trade, farmers discussing crops, travelers describing distant places. Extraordinary claims do not impress him easily, yet Beale somehow earns his confidence. Over time, a friendship develops. Nothing unusual about that. Friendships often form in places where travelers and innkeepers interact regularly, at least at first. The truly unusual events come later. For now, Beale remains simply a visitor, a man who occasionally arrives in town, stays for a period, then departs again. According to the story, these absences sometimes last months, perhaps longer, and whenever he returns, he appears to have been traveling extensively. Imagine the America of this period, the vast distances, the difficult roads, the enormous wilderness region stretching westward. A man could disappear into the frontier for months without attracting particular attention. Exploration remains common. Travel remains unpredictable. Many people spend long periods away from settled communities. Yet something about Beale's travels seems different, mysterious, purposeful, as though he is involved in something he chooses not to discuss. Imagine sitting beside him one evening. The fire burns low. Most guests have retired for the night. Only a few conversations remain. You might ask where he has been. Perhaps he smiles politely. Perhaps he offers a vague answer. The Western Territories, the mountains, the frontier. Nothing specific, nothing revealing, just enough information to satisfy curiosity. Or perhaps not satisfy it at all. Mystery often grows in the spaces left unexplained. As the years pass, Beale continues appearing and disappearing. Each return raises quiet questions. Where does he go? What business occupies his time? Why does he seem unconcerned with explaining his activities? No one knows. Or if they do know, they never leave a record. Then comes the event that transforms a curious traveler into a legend. An event so strange that it remains at the heart of the Beale Treasure Mystery. Imagine a warm afternoon in Lynchburg. The town goes about its daily routines. Merchants conduct business. Wagons arrive and depart. The ordinary rhythm of life continues. Thomas Beale appears once again. Yet this visit differs from previous ones. This time he carries something unusual, a locked iron box, not especially large, not ornate, not covered with decorations, simply a sturdy container made to protect whatever lies inside. At first glance, it appears unremarkable. Travelers often carry valuable items, important documents, money, personal possessions. An iron box does not necessarily attract attention, yet according to the legend, this particular box contains one of America's greatest mysteries. Imagine Beale speaking with Robert Morris privately. His tone is serious, deliberate. He explains that he may be absent for an extended period, possibly years. The box, he says, contains papers of considerable importance. He asks Morris to safeguard it, to keep it secure, and to follow specific instructions regarding its future. The request seems unusual, but not impossible. After all, trust exists between the two men. Morris agrees. The box is placed in safekeeping, and there it remains, silent, locked, its contents unknown. Imagine watching the box being stored away, perhaps on a shelf, perhaps in a secure room. Nothing about it suggests treasure. Nothing suggests secret codes. Nothing suggests that generations of people will eventually become obsessed with what lies inside. For now, it is simply a container, waiting. Months pass, then years. Beale does not return, at least not in the way Morris expects. According to the story, letters arrive occasionally. Letters written by Beale. Letters reassuring Morris that everything is proceeding according to plan, and reminding him to continue protecting the box. Imagine receiving such correspondence. A familiar handwriting, a brief update, a promise that further instructions will come later. Enough to maintain confidence, enough to encourage patience. Yet as time passes, patience becomes increasingly difficult. Years continue slipping away. The frontier changes. America changes. Still the box remains unopened. Still, Beale remains absent. The mystery deepens gradually, not through dramatic events, but through waiting, through unanswered questions, through silence. Eventually, according to the legend, a final communication arrives, one that will alter everything. Beale explains that if he does not return within a certain period, the box should be opened. Inside, Morris will supposedly find information explaining its significance, information connected to a remarkable secret, a secret involving enormous wealth hidden somewhere in Virginia. Imagine the moment Morris reads those instructions. The words must seem almost unbelievable. Treasure, hidden wealth, secret information concealed inside the box. Such claims sound more like adventure stories than ordinary reality. Yet the instructions remain clear. The box must stay closed until the proper time arrives. So Morris waits, and waits, and waits. The years pass slowly. The locked iron box remains exactly where it was left. Unopened, unexplained, its secrets hidden behind metal and time. Outside, America continues changing. New states join the Union. Roads improve, communities grow, generations come and go. Still, the mystery sleeps quietly inside the box, waiting for someone to finally unlock it, waiting for the moment when numbers, codes, treasure, and legend will emerge into the light. The night grows quiet around Lynchburg. The last lanterns flicker in distant windows. Travelers sleep. The roads stand empty beneath the stars. And somewhere in a secure room, an iron box rests in darkness, its contents unknown, its secrets protected, its role in one of America's greatest treasure mysteries only beginning to reveal itself. For Thomas J. Beale has vanished from the story, but the box remains, and soon the mystery hidden inside will begin its long journey through history. The years pass quietly. The iron box remains exactly where Thomas J. Beale left it, locked, unopened, silent. For Robert Morris, life continues much as it always has. Travelers come and go. The Washington Hotel remains busy. Business requires attention. The ordinary concerns of daily life occupy most of his time. Yet occasionally, perhaps during a quiet evening, his thoughts return to the mysterious box. What could be inside? Why had Beale placed such importance upon it? And perhaps most importantly, why had he never returned? Imagine the box sitting in a secure room somewhere within the hotel. Dust gathers slowly upon its surface. Seasons pass beyond the windows. Summer becomes autumn. Autumn becomes winter. Winter gives way to spring, again and again. The box remains unchanged, a small object surrounded by growing curiosity. The longer it sits unopened, the more mysterious it becomes. Human nature often works this way. The unknown draws our attention. Questions linger in the mind, and unanswered questions can become surprisingly powerful. Imagine receiving a sealed letter with instructions not to open it for 10 years. The The contents might be completely ordinary, yet the very act of waiting would make it seem important. The mystery would grow larger with every passing year. The Beale box seems to possess a similar quality. At first, it is simply an unusual responsibility. Over time, it becomes something more, a puzzle, a secret, a promise that answers exist somewhere beyond reach. According to the story, Robert Morris remains faithful to Beale's instructions. He waits patiently, longer than most people probably would. Years stretch into decades. Still, there is no sign of Thomas J. Beale, no explanation, no return, no further communication. Imagine how strange this must have felt. A man arrives and trusts you with a locked box, hints at something important, then disappears. Not for months, not for a few years, but seemingly forever. At some point, uncertainty begins replacing expectation. The possibility that Beale will never return becomes difficult to ignore. And eventually the moment arrives, the moment the mystery truly begins. Imagine a quiet evening. The fire burns low. The hotel has settled into silence. Outside, the streets of Lynchburg are dark. Robert Morris sits alone with the iron box before him. The time specified by Beale has long passed. No further instructions have arrived. No traveler has appeared carrying news. No explanation has been provided. At last, the decision is made. The box will be opened. Imagine the anticipation. Years of questions leading to this moment. The lock is examined, the container carefully opened, the lid slowly lifted. What waits inside? Gold? Jewels? Maps? Documents? The answer, according to the legend, surprises everyone. Inside lies no treasure, at least not directly. Instead, there are papers, letters, and several pages covered entirely with numbers. Rows and rows of numbers, hundreds of them, perhaps thousands. No obvious pattern, no immediate explanation, no simple message waiting to be read, just numbers. Imagine looking at such pages for the first time. At first glance, they appear meaningless, random, confusing, disappointing even. After years of anticipation, many people might expect something more dramatic. Yet the documents contain a startling claim. According to the accompanying information, these numerical pages are encrypted messages, secret codes, and somewhere within those codes lies the key to an enormous hidden treasure. Suddenly, everything changes. The mystery becomes larger than the box itself, larger than Thomas Beale, larger than Lynchburg. The focus shifts toward the coded messages. Imagine spreading the papers across a table. Candlelight flickers across the pages. Numbers fill every line. Some are small, others large. None seem to make sense. To the untrained eye, they appear impossible to decipher. Yet someone created them. Someone intended them to be understood. Somewhere behind those numbers lies meaning. The challenge is discovering it. The story claims there are 3 separate cipher texts, 3 independent coded documents, each serving a different purpose. One supposedly describes the treasure's location, one describes the treasure itself, and one identifies the rightful owners and heirs. Together they contain everything necessary to solve the mystery, or so the legend says. Imagine holding such documents, knowing that they may reveal a fortune, knowing that they may contain directions to hidden wealth, yet having absolutely no idea how to read them. The frustration would be immense, the temptation equally powerful. Many people would become obsessed, and in time many did. But before we reach the treasure hunters and codebreakers, let us pause and consider something important. Secret codes were not unusual during this period. In fact, cryptography has existed for centuries. Governments used coded messages. Military leaders used coded messages. Merchants occasionally protected sensitive information through various forms of encryption. The concept itself was not extraordinary. What made the Beale ciphers remarkable was their purpose. They supposedly protected not military secrets, not political information, but a hidden fortune. Imagine a treasure map written in a language nobody understands. The treasure may exist. The directions may be accurate, yet without the key, the information remains useless. That is essentially the challenge presented by the Beale papers. The answers appear to be right there on the page, visible to everyone, yet inaccessible, protected by mathematics and mystery rather than locks and walls. As Robert Morris studies the documents, he quickly realizes he faces a difficult problem. He has the ciphers, but he lacks the method needed to read them. The treasure, if it exists, remains hidden. The information, if it is genuine, remains locked behind numbers. Imagine spending evening after evening examining the pages, searching for patterns, testing theories, looking for anything that might provide a clue. The numbers refuse to cooperate. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. Still, the mystery remains intact. The coded messages guard their secrets carefully, and perhaps that is exactly what Thomas Beale intended. According to the story, the treasure was meant to remain hidden unless the proper information became available. The ciphers served as protection, a safeguard against theft, a way of ensuring that only the right people could uncover the fortune, at least in theory. In practice, they create one of America's greatest unsolved puzzles, a puzzle that will attract attention far beyond Virginia, far beyond the 19th century, far beyond anything Robert Morris could possibly imagine. For somewhere within those pages of numbers lies a message, and somewhere within that message may lie the path to a hidden treasure. Yet for now, the secret remains secure. The numbers sit quietly upon the page, unchanged, unbroken, waiting. Outside, the night deepens over Virginia. The town grows still. The roads lie empty beneath the stars, and on a table illuminated by candlelight, 3 mysterious cipher texts continue guarding their secrets. The treasure has not yet been found. The code has not yet been broken, but the long search is about to begin. The 3 cipher texts sit quietly upon the table. Rows of numbers, hundreds upon hundreds of them, each carefully written, each seemingly meaningless. And yet, according to the story, they contain the key to one of the largest hidden fortunes in American history. Imagine yourself in Robert Morris's position. The mysterious Thomas J. Beale has vanished. The locked box has finally been opened. The documents have been revealed. And now you are staring at pages filled entirely with numbers. The obvious question immediately presents itself. What treasure could possibly be important enough to require such secrecy? What exactly was Thomas Beale trying so desperately to protect? The answer, according to the legend, takes us far from Virginia, far beyond Lynchburg, far beyond the familiar towns and farms of the eastern United States, to a world of exploration, adventure, and vast stretches of wilderness that few Americans had ever seen. According to the Beale story, everything began years earlier, during a journey into the American frontier. Imagine America, around 1817. The nation is still young. Much of the continent remains only partially explored by Americans of European descent. Beyond the Mississippi River lies an enormous landscape of plains, mountains, rivers, and forests. For many people living in the East, these regions feel almost mythical. Stories drift back from traders and explorers. Stories of immense herds of buffalo, towering mountain ranges, hidden valleys, and occasionally stories of gold. The possibility of discovering valuable minerals has always attracted adventurers. From ancient civilizations to modern times, people have crossed deserts, mountains, and oceans in pursuit of precious metals. Gold possesses a unique power over the imagination, not because it is useful, but because it is rare, difficult to obtain, and widely valued. The dream of finding gold has inspired countless journeys throughout history. According to the Beale legend, Thomas J. Beale was among those dreamers. Imagine him as a young adventurer, curious, confident, restless, the kind of man who feels drawn toward distant horizons, the kind of man who sees opportunity where others see uncertainty. In the story, Beale joins a group of companions embarking on an expedition into the western frontier. Their exact destination remains somewhat unclear. As with many aspects of the mystery, details are frustratingly limited, yet the general account places them somewhere in the vast lands west of the Mississippi, perhaps in what is now New Mexico, perhaps in territory that was still largely unknown to Americans at the time. Imagine the journey, weeks on horseback, crossing rivers, traversing plains, sleeping beneath the stars. The landscape stretches endlessly in every direction. Days pass without encountering settlements. The horizon seems infinite. Travel in such regions requires endurance, patience, and resilience. The frontier offers opportunity, but it also presents enormous challenges. Weather, isolation, disease, accidents. Every expedition carries risk. Yet for many adventurers, the possibility of discovery outweighs the dangers. Imagine a campfire burning beneath a clear western sky. The stars appear brighter than anything visible in the eastern cities. The night air is cool. The surrounding landscape lies silent. Perhaps the travelers discuss their plans. Perhaps they share stories. Perhaps they wonder what lies beyond the next ridge or valley. The future remains uncertain, yet hope remains strong. Then, according to the legend, something extraordinary happens. The expedition discovers a rich deposit of precious metals, gold, silver, possibly both. The exact details vary depending on which version of the story is told, but the central claim remains the same. The group stumbles upon an enormous source of wealth. Imagine the moment. A glimmer of metal catching the sunlight. A discovery that initially seems impossible. Then comes verification. Excitement grows. What first appeared remarkable now seems almost unbelievable. The deposit is rich, exceptionally rich, perhaps richer than anything they could have imagined. For a group of frontier adventurers, such a discovery would be life-changing. The implications are enormous. Fortunes could be made, lives transformed, generations enriched. Yet the discovery also creates a problem. How does one protect such wealth? The American frontier is vast. Law enforcement is limited. Transportation is difficult. Carrying large quantities of precious metals creates obvious risks. The treasure must somehow be secured. Imagine the discussions that follow. The campfire burns late into the night. Voices remain serious. The men understand the significance of what they have found. They also understand the dangers. News of such a discovery could attract thieves, rivals, opportunists. Secrecy becomes essential. According to the legend, the group continues extracting treasure over an extended period. Not days, not weeks, but months, possibly years. The quantities described in the story are astonishing. Thousands of pounds of gold, thousands of pounds of silver, an immense collection of valuables. Even today, the estimated value would be extraordinary. Imagine loading such treasure onto horses and pack animals. Heavy bags of precious metal, carefully guarded, carefully concealed. The logistics alone seem daunting. Yet according to the story, this is exactly what happened. The treasure is gradually transported eastward, across enormous distances, through wilderness, over mountains, along rough roads, back toward Virginia. Why Virginia? That question has puzzled researchers for generations. The answer remains uncertain. Perhaps Beale trusted the region. Perhaps he considered it secure. Perhaps it simply seemed far enough from the original discovery site to discourage anyone searching for the treasure. Whatever the reason, Virginia becomes the chosen destination. Imagine the treasure arriving in stages, small portions at first, then larger shipments, each requiring careful planning, each requiring secrecy. The journey itself would have been remarkable. Moving such wealth across early 19th century America could not have been easy. Yet the story insists it was accomplished, and eventually, according to the legend, the treasure reached its final resting place, somewhere among the hills of Virginia, somewhere hidden from view, somewhere protected from discovery. Imagine a secluded location, perhaps a valley, perhaps a hillside, perhaps a cave. The exact place remains unknown. That uncertainty lies at the heart of the mystery. The treasure is buried, concealed, and entrusted to secrecy. The men who participated in the expedition understand the importance of protecting its location. A plan becomes necessary, a method for preserving information without revealing it to the wrong people. And this is where the cipher texts enter the story. Imagine gathering around a table after the treasure has been hidden. The question is simple. How can information about the treasure be preserved? What happens if someone dies unexpectedly? What happens if heirs need access to the fortune? What happens if the location must someday be revealed? The solution, according to the legend, is cryptography. Secret codes, encrypted messages, information concealed in plain sight, the treasure's location, its contents, and the names of its rightful owners are all encoded, protected by mathematics rather than physical barriers. The idea is clever, at least in theory. Anyone finding the documents would see only numbers. Without the proper key, the information remains inaccessible. The treasure stays hidden. The secret stays secure. Imagine Thomas Beale overseeing this process, perhaps writing instructions, perhaps organizing the information, perhaps believing that the system will protect the fortune for generations. He cannot know that the codes will become famous. He cannot know that thousands of people will eventually study them. He cannot know that his name will become one of the most famous names in treasure hunting history. For now, everything remains secret. The treasure lies hidden beneath Virginia soil. The coded messages wait quietly inside the iron box, and the future remains uncertain. Outside, the frontier continues expanding. New settlers move westward. New communities appear. America changes year by year. Yet somewhere in Virginia, if the legend is true, an enormous fortune rests undisturbed, protected by earth, protected by secrecy, and protected by 3 mysterious cipher texts that no one has yet learned to read. The night deepens. The candlelight flickers. The pages of numbers remain spread across the table, silent, patient, guarding a secret that may or may not be worth a fortune. And soon, someone will attempt to unlock the first piece of that secret. The treasure now lies hidden, or at least according to the legend it does, somewhere beneath the hills of Virginia, protected by secrecy, protected by distance, and protected by 3 mysterious cipher texts. As we continue our journey tonight, let us turn our attention away from the treasure itself and focus instead on the thing that has fascinated generations of people, the codes. Because in many ways, the Beale Treasure Mystery is not merely a treasure story. It is a code-breaking story, a puzzle, a challenge hidden within rows of numbers. And for more than 200 years, those numbers have refused to surrender their secrets easily. Imagine sitting at a wooden table in a quiet room. A candle burns nearby. Before you lie several sheets of paper, each covered from top to bottom with numbers. No words, no sentences, no obvious clues. Just columns and rows of figures stretching across the page. At first glance, they appear random, meaningless, almost impossible to understand. Yet according to the story, these numbers contain everything: the treasure's location, its contents, and the names of those entitled to claim it. The information exists. It is right there on the page, visible to anyone who looks, and yet completely hidden. This is one of the most fascinating qualities of cryptography. A secret message does not disappear. It remains in plain sight. The challenge is learning how to read it. Imagine receiving a letter written in a language you have never seen before. The symbols would be visible. The ink would be visible. The message would physically exist before your eyes, yet its meaning would remain inaccessible. The Beale ciphers create a similar experience. People can see the numbers. They simply cannot understand them, at least not immediately. To understand why these documents became so famous, let us briefly explore the world of secret codes. Human beings have been hiding information for thousands of years. Ancient military commanders used coded messages. Kings and queens protected diplomatic communications through encryption. Merchants concealed business information from competitors. Spies relied upon secret writing to protect valuable intelligence. Throughout history, information has often been as valuable as gold, sometimes even more valuable. Imagine an army preparing for battle. If an enemy discovers its plans, disaster may follow. A coded message can protect that information. Imagine a merchant transporting valuable goods. If thieves learn the route, the shipment becomes vulnerable. Again, secret communication offers protection. The same principle applies to treasure. If knowledge of a hidden fortune becomes public, the treasure may disappear long before its intended owners arrive. The Beale story claims that Thomas Beale understood this problem. He supposedly chose encryption as the solution. The treasure would remain safe because only those possessing the proper key could reveal its location. A clever idea, at least in theory. Imagine the 3 cipher texts spread before you. The first contains hundreds of numbers. The second contains hundreds more. The third continues the pattern. Each appears slightly different, yet all share the same mysterious structure. Numbers separated by commas. Some small, some large. No explanation, no obvious pattern, no instructions, only mystery. According to the legend, the first cipher describes the exact location of the buried treasure. This is the document treasure hunters care about most. After all, if the treasure exists, this message should reveal where to find it. Somewhere within those numbers lies a description of the hiding place, a map in coded form, directions concealed beneath layers of encryption. Imagine knowing that the answer exists on a sheet of paper sitting before you, knowing that a fortune may depend upon understanding it, and yet finding yourself completely unable to make sense of the message. The frustration would be immense, the temptation equally powerful. The second cipher supposedly describes the treasure itself, its contents, its value, the quantities of gold and silver hidden away. Unlike the first cipher, this document will eventually become very important, because years later someone will succeed in deciphering it. But for now, its secrets remain intact. The third cipher contains another crucial piece of information: the names of the treasure's rightful heirs, the individuals who should inherit the fortune if the original owners never return. This document is perhaps the most personal of the three. Somewhere within those numbers are names, families, people connected to the treasure's fate. Yet their identities remain hidden behind encryption. Imagine how strange this situation must seem. 3 messages, each containing vital information, each potentially connected to a fortune worth millions. Yet none of them can be read. The solution appears close enough to touch, and yet impossibly distant. The challenge attracts curiosity almost immediately. According to the story, Robert Morris attempts to understand the ciphers. He studies them carefully, searches for patterns, looks for clues. Yet success remains elusive. The numbers refuse to reveal their meaning. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. Still, the pages remain silent. Imagine spending hours examining the documents. Perhaps you begin counting how often certain numbers appear. Perhaps you search for repeated sequences. Perhaps you compare one cipher against another. The possibilities seem endless. Yet every attempt leads nowhere. The mystery remains intact. This experience is familiar to anyone who has ever tried solving a difficult puzzle. The closer you feel to the answer, the more frustrating uncertainty becomes. The Beale ciphers create exactly that sensation, a promise of hidden knowledge, a promise of discovery, always just beyond reach. As the years pass, the documents gradually become more than pieces of paper. They become symbols, symbols of mystery, symbols of possibility. People begin imagining what secrets might be concealed within them. Could the treasure truly be as large as claimed? Could the location really be hidden somewhere in Virginia? Could the solution be waiting for someone clever enough to discover it? Imagine hearing such a story for the first time. A hidden treasure, 3 secret codes, a vanished adventurer, an unsolved mystery. The ingredients feel almost perfectly designed to capture human imagination. And capture it they do. The Beale ciphers begin attracting attention from people far beyond Lynchburg. Some approach the puzzle scientifically, others approach it emotionally. Some become convinced they are on the verge of solving it, others conclude the task is impossible. Yet almost everyone agrees on one thing: the mystery is fascinating. Part of that fascination comes from the nature of codes themselves. A locked chest can be opened. A buried object can be excavated. A hidden room can be discovered. But a code presents a different challenge. The answer already exists. The treasure map, if there is one, already exists. The directions already exist. Everything necessary may already be present. The only missing piece is understanding, and understanding can sometimes be the hardest treasure of all. Imagine the countless people who will eventually study these pages. Mathematicians, historians, amateur cryptographers, professional codebreakers, ordinary dreamers, hoping to uncover a fortune. Each will stare at the same numbers. Each will search for the same answers. Most will leave disappointed, yet the mystery will continue calling new generations. Because somewhere within those pages, according to the legend, lies one of America's greatest secrets. And perhaps the most remarkable part of the story is this: one of the 3 ciphers will eventually be solved. Not all of them, just one. And when that happens, the mystery will grow even larger, because the decoded message will appear to confirm that the treasure is real. The numbers will finally speak, and what they reveal will astonish everyone who reads them. The night grows quiet around us. The candlelight flickers gently. The pages remain spread across the table, rows of numbers stretching endlessly across the paper. Silent, patient, waiting for the moment when one determined codebreaker will finally uncover their first secret. And when that secret emerges, the Beale Treasure Mystery will become even more extraordinary. The years continue to pass. The mysterious ciphers remain unsolved. The treasure, if it exists, remains hidden. And the legend of Thomas J. Beale slowly drifts through Virginia like a story told beside a fireplace. For many people, the mystery would have ended there: a locked box, 3 coded documents, an extraordinary claim with no clear proof. Yet the Beale treasure story takes an unexpected turn, because eventually one of the ciphers is solved, and when it is, the mystery becomes far more difficult to dismiss. Imagine once again the pages of numbers spread across a table, rows and rows of figures, silent, unreadable. For years they resist every attempt to understand them. The first cipher remains a mystery. The third cipher remains a mystery. But the second cipher begins attracting special attention. Perhaps because its structure appears slightly different. Perhaps because fortune finally favors a patient investigator. Or perhaps simply because history occasionally grants us one answer while withholding many others. According to the traditional account, an unnamed individual spends years studying the documents, trying different methods, testing different theories, searching for any clue that might unlock the code. The process is slow, frustrating, and often disappointing. Imagine sitting alone at a desk late at night, candles burning low, sheets of paper scattered around you, columns of numbers carefully copied and examined, every possible pattern explored, every new idea tested, again and again. Most attempts fail, yet the search continues, because somewhere inside the cipher lies a message, a real message, created by a real person, waiting to be discovered. Then one day, a breakthrough occurs, not through extraordinary genius, not through advanced technology, but through a simple observation. Imagine noticing that the cipher contains numbers ranging from relatively small figures to surprisingly large ones. The pattern suggests something interesting. Perhaps the numbers correspond to words or letters or positions within another document. Suddenly, a new possibility emerges. Maybe the cipher is not a code in the traditional sense. Maybe it is a key, a guide directing the reader toward another text entirely. The idea seems promising, and so the search expands. Different books are tested, different documents examined, one after another. The Bible, historical works, government publications, anything that might serve as a reference text. Most attempts lead nowhere. The numbers refuse to cooperate. The mystery remains intact. Then comes the document that changes everything: the Declaration of Independence. Imagine the famous American document, written in 1776, filled with words familiar to generations of Americans, a declaration of liberty, a statement of national identity, a cornerstone of American history. Now imagine using the Declaration of Independence as a key. The process works like this. Each number in the cipher corresponds to a word within the document. The first letter of that word becomes part of the hidden message. Slowly, patiently, letter by letter, a sentence begins to emerge, then another and another. For the first time, one of the Beale ciphers begins speaking. Imagine the excitement. After years of silence, after decades of uncertainty, the numbers finally reveal meaning. The message is real. The code works. The cipher is not nonsense. It contains actual information. And what that information says is astonishing. The decoded message does not reveal the treasure's location, nor does it identify the heirs. Instead, it describes the treasure itself, the hidden fortune supposedly buried somewhere in Virginia. According to the decoded text, the treasure consists of enormous quantities of gold and silver. thousands of pounds of precious metals, along with valuable jewels obtained during the expedition. The exact wording varies slightly depending on the version examined, but the meaning remains clear. The treasure is vast, far larger than many people expected. Imagine reading those words for the first time. The implications are extraordinary. Until now, the treasure story could easily be dismissed as fantasy, a rumor, a legend, a clever tale, but the successful decryption changes things. One cipher has been solved, and the message appears to support the story. Suddenly, the possibility of a real treasure seems more believable. The mystery deepens rather than disappears, because new questions immediately arise. If cipher number 2 is genuine, what about the others? If one message can be decoded, perhaps the remaining messages can as well. Perhaps the treasure's location truly lies hidden within cipher number 1. Perhaps the names of the heirs truly exist within cipher number 3. The solved message transforms the entire puzzle. Imagine newspapers reporting the discovery. Imagine people discussing it in homes and taverns. The story becomes more than a local legend. It becomes a national curiosity. The treasure appears more real than ever. And yet, frustratingly, the most important information remains inaccessible. The treasure inventory has been revealed, but the treasure itself remains lost. The location remains unknown. Imagine possessing a list of everything inside a treasure chest. Every coin, every jewel, every valuable object, yet having absolutely no idea where the chest is hidden. That is essentially the situation created by the solved cipher. The answer is tantalizingly close, yet still incomplete. This combination of success and failure helps explain why the Beale mystery survives. People are not dealing with a completely unsolved puzzle. They are dealing with a partially solved puzzle. One cipher works. One cipher produces meaningful information. That fact encourages further investigation. After all, if one message is authentic, perhaps the others are authentic as well. The solved cipher acts like a doorway, a glimpse into the larger mystery. Enough information to inspire hope, not enough information to provide certainty. Imagine treasure hunters studying the decoded message, calculating the value of the gold and silver, estimating what the treasure might be worth in modern terms. The numbers become staggering. Millions of dollars, perhaps tens of millions. Depending on market values and assumptions, the hidden fortune grows larger in the public imagination. The dream becomes more powerful, and with that dream comes obsession. Some people begin searching for the treasure. Others focus on the codes. Still, others question whether the entire story can be trusted. The debates become endless. Was the solved cipher genuine? Was the Declaration of Independence really the key? Could someone have fabricated the message? Or does the successful decryption prove that Thomas Beale's story is true? Imagine sitting quietly beside the fire, considering these questions. The evidence seems compelling, yet uncertainty remains. One answer has emerged. Many more remain hidden. The solved cipher has illuminated part of the path, but most of the journey still lies ahead. And perhaps that is what makes the Beale mystery so captivating. Every answer creates new questions. Every discovery reveals new uncertainty. The closer people move toward the truth, the more elusive that truth appears to become. The candle burns lower. The night deepens around us. The pages of numbers remain spread across the table. One cipher has finally surrendered its secret. Two continue resisting every attempt to understand them. The treasure remains buried. The location remains unknown. And across America, a new generation of treasure hunters and codebreakers is preparing to join the search because the mystery has now become far too intriguing to ignore, and the greatest challenges still lie ahead. The successful decoding of the second cipher changes everything. Before that moment, the Beale Treasure story exists largely as an intriguing legend, a tale passed from person to person, a mystery discussed by curious minds, something interesting, something unusual, but perhaps not entirely believable. After all, America has never lacked treasure stories. Every region seems to have one. Hidden pirate gold, lost mines, buried fortunes. Most fade with time. Most remain little more than folklore. Yet the Beale mystery is different because one of its codes appears to work. One of its secrets has been unlocked, and suddenly the possibility of a genuine hidden treasure feels much more real. Imagine hearing the news for the first time. A coded message has been solved, not theoretically, not partially, actually solved. The message describes a vast fortune hidden somewhere in Virginia. Gold, silver, jewels, an enormous cache of wealth waiting beneath the earth. Such news would be difficult to ignore, especially in 19th century America. Imagine sitting in a small town reading room. A newspaper rests in your hands. You come across an article describing the mystery, a hidden treasure, secret codes, an unsolved location. Immediately, your imagination begins working. Where might the treasure be? Who was Thomas Beale? Could the story actually be true? Questions lead to more questions. And before long, the mystery occupies a place in your thoughts. The same thing happens across the country. The story spreads, not overnight, but steadily, year after year. The Beale mystery begins attracting attention far beyond Virginia. Newspapers discuss it, writers mention it, travelers share it. The legend grows larger with every retelling. Imagine two strangers meeting during a long train journey. Conversation drifts naturally toward unusual topics. Someone mentions hidden treasure. The Beale story emerges. Soon, both passengers are discussing codes, fortunes, and possibilities. The mystery possesses a remarkable ability to spark curiosity, perhaps because it combines so many fascinating elements: adventure, history, cryptography, and treasure. Each element appeals to different people. Together, they create something irresistible. The timing also helps. America in the 19th century remains a nation fascinated by discovery. The frontier continues expanding. New territories are explored. Gold rushes capture headlines. Stories of sudden wealth circulate constantly. People know that fortunes can be found. The California gold rush will soon demonstrate exactly that. Across the nation, countless individuals dream of striking it rich. The Beale treasure seems to offer another opportunity, not a mine waiting to be discovered, but a fortune already gathered, already hidden, waiting for someone clever enough to find it. Imagine standing in a bookstore during this period. Shelves contain travel narratives, exploration journals, adventure stories, accounts of frontier life. The public appetite for such material is enormous. People want stories about distant places, unexplored regions, extraordinary discoveries. The Beale mystery fits perfectly into this environment. It feels like an adventure story, yet it claims to be true. That combination proves powerful. As interest grows, amateur codebreakers begin examining the ciphers. Imagine one of these enthusiasts sitting at a desk late at night, papers scattered around the room, notes covering every available surface, the cipher text carefully copied by hand. Hours disappear as theories are tested, patterns explored, possibilities considered. Most attempts end in frustration, yet hope remains, because one cipher has already been solved. The remaining messages must have solutions too, or so people believe. Some approach the puzzle methodically. They count recurring numbers, analyze frequencies, compare patterns. Others rely on intuition, searching for hidden clues, looking for anything unusual, anything that might reveal the key. Imagine the optimism. Perhaps tonight will be the night. Perhaps tomorrow. Perhaps the solution lies just one observation away. This optimism drives countless investigations, yet the ciphers remain stubbornly silent, especially cipher number 1, the document supposedly containing the treasure's location. If that message could be decoded, the mystery might finally end. The treasure could be found, the story confirmed, the legend resolved, but the cipher refuses to cooperate. Again and again, year after year, attempt after attempt, the numbers remain unreadable. Imagine the growing frustration. The inventory has been revealed. The treasure's existence appears supported, yet the one piece of information everyone wants most remains hidden: the location. Without it, the treasure remains inaccessible. The puzzle remains incomplete. And incomplete puzzles possess a unique power. They linger in the mind, refusing to disappear. As decades pass, the Beale mystery develops a devoted following. Some people become casual enthusiasts. Others become deeply invested. A few devote years of their lives to the search. Imagine a man spending evenings after work studying the ciphers, not because he expects immediate success, but because the mystery fascinates him. The challenge itself becomes rewarding. The possibility of discovery remains alluring. And so the investigation continues. What makes the Beale mystery especially unusual is that it exists at the intersection of several different worlds. Historians study it, cryptographers study it, treasure hunters study it, writers study it. Each group approaches the story differently. Historians ask whether the events actually occurred. Cryptographers focus on the codes. Treasure hunters focus on the location. Writers focus on the narrative itself. The result is a mystery that appeals to an unusually wide audience. Imagine attending a gathering where people discuss the Beale story. One person argues the treasure is real. Another insists the entire tale is a hoax. A third focuses on cryptographic methods. A fourth discusses historical records. Hours pass. The debate continues. No one agrees completely, yet everyone remains interested. That is the enduring strength of the mystery. It invites participation. Everyone feels they might contribute something, a theory, a clue, a fresh perspective. As the years pass, more and more treasure legends fade from public memory. Yet the Beale mystery survives, partly because of the solved cipher, partly because of the unsolved ciphers, and partly because the treasure itself remains unfound. Imagine if someone had discovered the treasure shortly after the cipher was decoded. The story would likely have ended. A remarkable historical episode, interesting but complete. Instead, the treasure remains hidden, or perhaps never existed. And because the ending remains uncertain, the mystery continues growing. New generations encounter the story. New investigators join the search. New theories emerge. The puzzle renews itself again and again. The Beale mystery becomes more than a treasure hunt. It becomes part of American folklore, a legend passed from one generation to the next, a story that refuses to fade. The solved cipher has given people just enough evidence to keep believing, and just enough uncertainty to keep wondering. The night grows quiet once more. The newspapers have been folded away. The discussions have ended for the evening. The codebreakers extinguish their lamps. Yet somewhere in Virginia, if the legend is true, the treasure remains exactly where it has always been. Undisturbed, unclaimed, waiting. And across America, a growing army of treasure hunters and amateur cryptographers continue searching for the answer, because the mystery has become something larger than gold, larger than silver, larger even than treasure itself. It has become a challenge, a puzzle, a dream, and dreams, once they capture the imagination, can endure for a very long time. As the 19th century moves forward, the Beale Treasure Mystery enters a new phase. The story is no longer confined to Virginia, no longer discussed only by local residents, no longer simply a curious tale passed between travelers. It has become a national puzzle, and wherever there is a puzzle, there are people determined to solve it. Imagine America during the late 19th century. Railroads now stretch across the continent. Telegraph lines carry messages over great distances. Cities grow larger, industries expand. The nation changes rapidly. Yet despite all these advances, one thing remains remarkably familiar. People still love mysteries, perhaps more than ever, and few mysteries seem more enticing than a hidden treasure protected by secret codes. The solved second cipher has accomplished something important. It has convinced many people that the puzzle deserves serious attention. After all, cipher number 2 appears to contain meaningful information. The message exists. The code works. Therefore, many assume the remaining ciphers must also be solvable. The challenge is simply discovering how. Imagine a man sitting at a desk in 1880. Stacks of paper surround him. The Beale ciphers rest before him. He has spent weeks studying them, perhaps months. He believes he's close to a breakthrough. Many investigators feel exactly the same way, yet breakthrough after breakthrough fails to arrive. The numbers continue resisting interpretation. Still, the search continues. One reason the mystery survives is because cryptography itself is becoming more sophisticated. Throughout history, secret codes have evolved. Some are simple substitutions, others rely upon complex mathematical systems. The Beale ciphers seem to belong somewhere in between, complicated enough to resist casual decoding, simple enough to suggest they were designed by ordinary individuals rather than professional cryptographers. This balance makes the puzzle especially frustrating. Imagine looking at the ciphers. You know they were supposedly created in the early 19th century. You know they were intended to be solved eventually. Therefore, the solution cannot be impossibly complicated, and yet every attempt fails. The contradiction is maddening. The answer feels attainable, yet remains elusive. By the late 19th century, amateur codebreakers across America are experimenting with increasingly creative approaches. Some believe the ciphers rely upon famous books. Others suspect religious texts. Still others think maps, legal documents, or historical speeches may hold the key. Imagine someone sitting beside a lamp late at night. Several books lie open across the table. The Declaration of Independence, the Bible, Shakespeare, government records. Each is tested carefully, word by word, number by number. The hope is always the same. Perhaps this document will finally unlock the mystery. Perhaps this will be the key Beale intended. Yet once again, disappointment follows. The ciphers remain unread. The treasure remains hidden. As the 20th century approaches, a new type of investigator joins the search: professional cryptographers. Unlike enthusiastic amateurs, these individuals study codes for a living. Some work for governments, some for military organizations, others for private institutions. Their expertise gives them a unique perspective. If anyone can solve the Beale ciphers, surely it should be them. Imagine handing the documents to a trained codebreaker, someone who has spent years deciphering encrypted messages, someone familiar with dozens of coding systems, someone who understands patterns invisible to most people. The expectation is obvious, a solution should follow. Yet surprisingly, even experts struggle. The Beale ciphers refuse to yield their secrets again and again. Some cryptographers conclude the puzzle is genuine but extremely difficult. Others reach a more troubling conclusion. Perhaps the ciphers were never meant to be solved at all. Imagine considering that possibility. What if the treasure does not exist? What if the codes are not protecting a fortune? What if they are simply meaningless numbers, arranged to create the appearance of a mystery? The thought is unsettling, yet it cannot be ignored, because the longer investigators study the documents, the more questions emerge. Questions about the story itself, questions about Thomas Beale, questions about the origins of the ciphers. The mystery begins expanding beyond treasure. Now it includes the possibility of deception. Still, many researchers remain optimistic. Imagine a mathematician examining the documents. Instead of focusing on words, he focuses on numbers, patterns, sequences, relationships. Perhaps the solution lies in arithmetic. Perhaps hidden structures exist beneath the surface. Weeks become months. Months become years. The results remain disappointing. No convincing breakthrough emerges. The ciphers continue guarding their secrets. Yet the lack of success only seems to increase fascination. Human beings often become more interested in puzzles that resist solution. Imagine two locked doors. One opens after a few attempts. The other remains stubbornly closed for decades. Which door attracts more attention? Almost certainly the second. The Beale ciphers become that second door, a challenge that refuses to surrender, a mystery that grows stronger with every failed attempt. Throughout the early 20th century, articles continue appearing in newspapers and magazines. Authors publish theories. Researchers propose solutions. Treasure hunters announce discoveries. Most claims eventually collapse under scrutiny. Yet each generates fresh interest, fresh excitement, fresh hope. Imagine reading one of these headlines: Treasure mystery nearly solved. New theory reveals hidden location. Researcher claims cipher breakthrough. The promise is always compelling. The reality is usually less impressive. The mystery survives another year, another decade, another generation. One particularly fascinating aspect of the Beale story is how it attracts different kinds of thinkers. Some approach it like historians, others like detectives, others like mathematicians. Each sees a different puzzle. Historians ask whether the events happened. Detectives ask who created the documents. Mathematicians ask how the codes work. Treasure hunters ask where the fortune is buried. Imagine a room filled with such people, all studying the same documents, all examining the same evidence, yet each pursuing a different question. The mystery becomes a mirror, reflecting the interests of whoever examines it. And perhaps that is why it endures. The Beale treasure is not just one mystery. It is many mysteries layered together: a hidden fortune, a vanished adventurer, a secret code, a historical puzzle, a possible hoax. Each layer adds depth. Each layer attracts new investigators. As technology improves, so do the tools available to researchers. Yet even the most sophisticated methods fail to provide definitive answers. The ciphers remain stubbornly silent. The treasure remains unfound. And Thomas J. Beale remains an elusive figure, drifting through the shadows of American folklore. Imagine all the people who have studied the mystery. Thousands, perhaps tens of thousands. Some devoted years of their lives to the search. Some spent fortunes financing expeditions. Others filled notebooks with calculations and theories. Most discovered nothing, yet all became part of the story, because the search itself has become almost as important as the treasure. The mystery now possesses a life of its own, independent of whether the gold exists, independent of whether the codes can be solved, independent of whether Thomas Beale ever buried anything at all. The puzzle survives because people continue asking questions, and the questions remain unanswered. The evening grows quiet. The papers remain spread across the table, rows of numbers stretching endlessly across the page. Cryptographers have examined them. Mathematicians have studied them. Historians have debated them. Still, the mystery endures. Still, the treasure remains hidden. And somewhere beyond the horizon, an even larger question is beginning to emerge. A question that may be more important than any cipher. What if Thomas J. Beale himself is the greatest mystery of all? Because before anyone can find the treasure, they must first answer a simpler question. Was the man who supposedly buried it even real? As we continue our journey into the Beale Treasure Mystery, we arrive at a question that has troubled historians for generations. A question surprisingly simple, and yet remarkably difficult to answer. Who was Thomas J. Beale? Not what treasure did he find, not where did he bury it, not how the ciphers work, but who was the man himself? Because before we can determine whether the treasure is real, we must first understand the person who supposedly created the mystery. And this is where the story becomes even more intriguing. Imagine spending years investigating a famous historical figure. You expect to find records, letters, signatures, business transactions, official documents, some trace of their existence. After all, Thomas Beale was supposedly a well-traveled adventurer, a man who crossed enormous distances, discovered treasure, managed vast wealth, and organized one of the most elaborate treasure caches in American history. Surely such a person would leave evidence behind. Surely historians would find records confirming his life. Yet the search for Thomas J. Beale produces surprisingly little. Imagine entering an archive. Dusty shelves stretch in every direction. Old documents fill drawers and cabinets. Tax records, court records, property records, birth records, business records, the sort of materials historians rely upon every day. Researchers begin searching carefully, page after page, year after year, looking for evidence, looking for Thomas Beale. Sometimes they find small references, names that appear similar, individuals who might be connected, possible clues, but nothing definitive, nothing that clearly identifies the famous treasure hunter of legend. The absence is striking, and it raises difficult questions. Imagine discovering a detailed story about someone who supposedly achieved extraordinary things, then realizing that almost every piece of information comes from a single source. No independent confirmation, no personal correspondence, no surviving journal, very little beyond the treasure narrative itself. This is the challenge historians face with Thomas Beale. The deeper they investigate, the more elusive he becomes, like a figure standing at the edge of a foggy landscape, visible enough to suggest presence, never clear enough to confirm. Some researchers believe this absence is understandable. After all, early 19th century America did not preserve records as thoroughly as modern society. Many documents have been lost, destroyed by fire, floods, wars, simple neglect. Countless ordinary people left only limited traces behind. Perhaps Thomas Beale was one of them. Imagine a traveler moving constantly between regions, rarely staying in one place for long, avoiding public attention, conducting business privately. Such a person might leave surprisingly little evidence, especially if much of their life occurred on the frontier. This explanation satisfies some historians, but not everyone. Others remain skeptical, because while ordinary people sometimes disappear from historical records, extraordinary people usually do not. And according to the Beale story, Thomas Beale was anything but ordinary. He supposedly discovered one of the largest treasure deposits in American history, organized the transportation of enormous wealth, created sophisticated cipher systems, and entrusted a fortune to future generations. Such achievements would normally leave traces. Yet those traces remain frustratingly difficult to find. Imagine searching through old newspapers. Perhaps there are reports of a large expedition, perhaps records of substantial gold shipments, perhaps stories about a wealthy adventurer passing through town. Researchers have looked again and again. The results remain inconclusive. The historical silence surrounding Beale becomes part of the mystery itself. Some investigators have attempted to identify him through indirect evidence, looking for men with similar names, similar backgrounds, similar travel histories. Theories emerge. Perhaps Beale was not using his real name. Perhaps Thomas J. Beale was an alias, a false identity created to protect secrecy. The idea is certainly possible. History contains countless examples of individuals operating under assumed names, especially when large sums of money are involved. Imagine an adventurer wishing to conceal the source of his wealth. An alias might provide useful protection. If that were true, the absence of records becomes easier to understand. Researchers would be searching for the wrong person. The real individual would remain hidden behind another identity. Yet this theory creates new questions. If Beale used a false name, what was his real name? Why conceal it? And why leave behind enough information to create a treasure mystery in the first place? The answers remain uncertain. As always, certainty remains frustratingly out of reach. Imagine sitting with a group of historians discussing the evidence. One believes Beale was real, another doubts it. A third remains undecided. Hours pass, arguments are presented, records examined, possibilities considered. No consensus emerges. The mystery survives another day. One fascinating aspect of the debate involves Beale's personality as described in the original account. According to the story, he appears intelligent, responsible, trustworthy, the sort of man capable of organizing a complex operation. He plans carefully, thinks ahead, creates systems designed to protect the treasure. These characteristics feel believable, human, yet they also feel suspiciously perfect, almost as though they were crafted by a storyteller. Imagine writing a fictional treasure narrative. You would likely create a protagonist who is competent, mysterious, capable, exactly the qualities attributed to Thomas Beale. This observation leads some researchers toward a troubling conclusion. Perhaps Beale never existed at all. Perhaps he was created specifically for the story, a fictional character designed to make the treasure legend more compelling. The possibility changes everything. Imagine discovering that the central figure in a mystery was invented. Suddenly, every detail becomes questionable. Every event becomes uncertain. The treasure itself comes under suspicion. The ciphers, the expedition, the buried fortune, all of it. Yet despite these doubts, many people continue believing Beale was real, partly because the story feels grounded in its historical setting, partly because the solved cipher appears to contain meaningful information, and partly because the alternative explanation creates mysteries of its own. If Beale was fictional, who created him? Why create such an elaborate story? What purpose would it serve? The questions multiply endlessly. The mystery grows deeper, not shallower. Imagine standing in Lynchburg today. The modern city surrounds you. Cars move along paved streets. Businesses operate where travelers once stopped on horseback. The world has changed dramatically. Yet somewhere beneath the surface of history, the figure of Thomas J. Beale continues lingering, neither fully real nor fully fictional, a shadow moving through the story, always present, never entirely understood. The search for his identity has lasted generations. Researchers continue examining records, comparing documents, testing theories. Yet definitive proof remains elusive, and perhaps that uncertainty is fitting, because the Beale Treasure Mystery has never been a story that offers easy answers. Every clue seems to create additional questions. Every discovery reveals another layer of uncertainty. The man at the center of the legend remains just beyond reach, much like the treasure itself. The evening grows quiet. The archives close for the night. The old records return to their shelves. Historians set aside their notes, yet the question remains: who was Thomas J. Beale? A real adventurer? A forgotten treasure hunter? A man using another name? Or simply a fictional character created to support an extraordinary tale? The answer remains hidden, and as we continue our journey, another possibility begins to emerge, a possibility that some researchers find increasingly convincing. What if the greatest treasure mystery in America was never a treasure mystery at all? What if it was something else entirely? What if the entire story was an elaborate hoax? That question awaits us in the next chapter of our journey. As the years pass, the Beale Treasure Mystery grows larger. More people hear the story. More people study the ciphers. More people search the hills and valleys of Virginia. Yet despite all this attention, one uncomfortable question refuses to disappear. What if none of it is true? What if there is no treasure, no hidden cache of gold, no buried silver, no secret expedition to the American West, no mysterious Thomas J. Beale? What if the entire story was carefully invented? At first, the idea feels disappointing. After all, hidden treasure is far more exciting than fraud. Adventure is more appealing than deception. Most people would prefer the mystery to be real, yet historians must follow evidence wherever it leads. And over time, some researchers begin noticing details that trouble them, details that suggest the Beale treasure story may not be exactly what it appears. Imagine yourself as a historian examining an old manuscript. At first glance, everything seems convincing. Dates are provided, locations are mentioned, specific events are described. The narrative feels authentic. Yet, as you read more carefully, small questions begin emerging. A date that seems unusual, a missing record, an inconsistency. One concern by itself means very little, but several concerns together can become difficult to ignore. The Beale story contains many such concerns. One of the first involves the source itself. Imagine tracing the mystery back to its origins. Where does the story come from? What evidence supports it? Who first shared it with the public? The answer leads researchers to a document known as the Beale pamphlet, published in 1885. This small booklet introduces the mystery to a wider audience. It contains the story of Thomas Beale, the account of the treasure, the description of the ciphers, and the decoded message from cipher number 2. Without this pamphlet, most people would never have heard of the Beale treasure at all. Imagine holding a copy. Its pages describe extraordinary events, a hidden fortune, secret codes, a mysterious adventurer. Yet the pamphlet presents a problem. It is essentially the only major source for the story. There are very few independent records confirming its claims. Historians generally prefer multiple sources, multiple witnesses, multiple documents supporting important events. The Beale mystery offers remarkably little of that. Instead, much of the legend depends upon trusting the pamphlet itself. Imagine reading a biography of a famous explorer, then discovering that every piece of information comes from a single anonymous source. No letters, no journals, no official records, only one account. You would naturally become cautious. That caution shapes much of the modern debate surrounding the Beale treasure. Another issue involves timing. According to the story, the treasure expedition occurs in the early 19th century. The ciphers are created. The iron box is left behind. Years pass. Decades pass. Then suddenly, many years later, the story appears in published form. Imagine how much information can change during decades of retelling. Memories fade, details shift, stories evolve. Even honest accounts can become distorted over time. The longer a story remains unwritten, the more opportunities exist for alteration. This possibility concerns many researchers. They wonder whether parts of the narrative may have changed before publication, or perhaps even been invented entirely. Imagine a storyteller sitting at a desk. He possesses fragments of information, perhaps a local legend, perhaps a rumor, perhaps an unsolved puzzle. Over time, those fragments become woven together into a compelling narrative. The result may feel true, yet feeling true and being true are not always the same thing. Some researchers believe exactly this happened with the Beale story. The ciphers may have existed, the mystery may have existed, but the surrounding narrative could have been enhanced, expanded, dramatized, made more entertaining for readers. Another point of concern involves the treasure itself. The quantities described in the decoded cipher are enormous. Thousands of pounds of gold and silver, large quantities of jewels. Transporting such wealth would have been a major undertaking. Imagine the logistics involved. Horses, wagons, guards, supplies, roads. The operation would have required planning on a remarkable scale. Yet historians struggle to find independent evidence of such an expedition. No clear records, no detailed accounts, no widespread reports. The silence feels strange, not impossible, but unusual. Imagine attempting to move a fortune across hundreds of miles without attracting attention. The task would be difficult today. It would have been even more difficult 200 years ago. This absence of evidence causes some researchers to doubt the story's central claims. Yet perhaps the most interesting question concerns motive. If the story is a hoax, why create it? What would anyone gain? The answer may lie in something surprisingly familiar: money. Imagine publishing a sensational mystery in the 19th century, a hidden treasure, secret codes, an unsolved puzzle. Readers would be fascinated. They would purchase pamphlets, discuss theories, share the story with friends. Interest would spread naturally. The mystery itself becomes valuable, not because of hidden gold, but because people enjoy mysteries. The possibility raises an intriguing theory. Perhaps the treasure was never intended to be found. Perhaps the treasure never existed. Perhaps the real product being sold was the story itself. Imagine creating a puzzle so compelling that people continue discussing it for generations. That would be a remarkable achievement. And if the Beale story is a hoax, it may be one of the most successful in American history. Yet even this explanation faces challenges, because the ciphers remain real, the documents exist, the solved second cipher exists. Something unusual clearly happened. The question is what? Imagine two researchers examining the same evidence. One concludes the treasure is real. The other concludes the story is fabricated. Both point to legitimate facts. Both raise reasonable arguments. Neither can completely prove their case. This uncertainty has kept the debate alive for more than a century. The mystery refuses to settle. Every explanation contains strengths. Every explanation contains weaknesses. Some historians focus on the missing records. Others focus on the solved cipher. Some see evidence of deception. Others see evidence of authenticity. The result is a puzzle that remains remarkably balanced. Imagine a scale with evidence on both sides. Neither side fully outweighs the other. The mystery hangs in equilibrium, suspended between belief and doubt. Perhaps that is why the Beale treasure continues fascinating people. It occupies a rare position, not obviously true, not obviously false, just uncertain enough to invite endless discussion. As evening settles across Virginia once more, imagine the hidden treasure, if it exists, resting quietly beneath the earth, gold untouched by human hands, silver waiting in darkness, the secret location known only to a code no one can read. Or perhaps imagine something else. Imagine an empty hillside, no treasure, no fortune, only a story carefully crafted long ago. A story that somehow escaped its creator and became part of American folklore. Which version is correct? The truth remains elusive, and that truth continues drawing researchers back to the mystery again and again. Because whether the treasure is real or imaginary, one fact remains undeniable. The Beale mystery has become one of the most enduring legends in American history. And while historians debate its origins, a different group of people continues pursuing a far more practical goal. They are not interested in proving or disproving the story. They simply want to find the treasure. For them, the question is simple: what if the gold is still there? And so as the 20th century unfolds, a new generation of treasure hunters begins searching the Virginia countryside, convinced that somewhere beneath the hills, the answer is waiting. The 20th century arrives. The world changes rapidly. Automobiles begin replacing horses. Telephones connect distant communities. Airplanes take to the skies. Technology advances at a remarkable pace. Yet despite these transformations, one mystery remains stubbornly unchanged. The Beale treasure has not been found. The ciphers remain largely unsolved. And somewhere in Virginia, if the legend is true, a fortune still waits beneath the earth. For treasure hunters, this is an irresistible possibility. Imagine hearing the Beale story for the first time in the early 1900s. You learn of a hidden fortune worth millions. You learn that one cipher has already been decoded. You learn that the treasure's location remains unknown. The challenge feels tantalizingly close. Unlike legends of lost cities or mythical kingdoms, the Beale treasure seems attainable. The treasure is supposedly buried in a specific state, a real place. Not somewhere across an ocean, not deep within an unexplored jungle, but in Virginia, a location accessible to anyone willing to search. This simple fact inspires countless expeditions. Imagine a treasure hunter unfolding a map of Virginia across a wooden table. He studies the hills, the valleys, the rivers, the old roads. Somewhere on that map, he believes, lies the answer, perhaps hidden beneath a hillside, perhaps concealed within a forgotten cave, perhaps buried beneath farmland that has changed hands many times over the generations. The possibilities seem endless, and so the search begins, again and again and again. Throughout the 20th century, individuals and small groups organize expeditions based upon their own interpretations of the mystery. Some focus on Bedford County. Others explore neighboring regions. Each believes they possess a clue overlooked by previous investigators. Imagine arriving at a remote hillside before sunrise. The morning air feels cool and quiet. Mist drifts across the landscape. Birdsong echoes from distant trees. The treasure hunters carry shovels, maps, notes, perhaps even copies of the Beale ciphers. Optimism accompanies them. Today might be the day. Today might finally reveal the hidden fortune. Hours pass, then days. Excavations are conducted. Soil is carefully removed. Promising locations are examined. Yet most searches end the same way. Nothing. No treasure. No gold. No silver. Only earth and stone. Imagine the emotional cycle. Hope at the beginning. excitement during the search, disappointment at the conclusion. Many treasure hunters experience this pattern repeatedly, yet remarkably few abandon the mystery entirely, because the possibility remains. The treasure may still be there. The next search may succeed where previous attempts failed. The dream survives. As technology improves, so do the tools available to searchers. Early treasure hunters rely largely upon intuition and manual labor, maps, shovels, local knowledge. By the middle of the 20th century, new equipment becomes available. Metal detectors begin transforming treasure hunting. Imagine the excitement surrounding these devices. For the first time, searchers can examine large areas more efficiently. Hidden metal objects become easier to locate. Perhaps the Beale treasure will finally reveal itself. Many believe the breakthrough is imminent. Yet once again, the mystery proves stubborn. Metal detectors uncover many things: old tools, farm equipment, discarded objects, historical artifacts. What they do not uncover is the Beale treasure, at least not conclusively. Imagine walking slowly across a field with a metal detector. The machine emits occasional signals. Each sound raises anticipation. Perhaps this is the moment. Perhaps this signal marks buried treasure. Then excavation reveals an old horseshoe or a rusted nail. The search continues, decade after decade. The Virginia countryside witnesses countless such moments, small discoveries, large hopes, and ultimately, uncertainty. Some treasure hunters become local legends themselves, individuals who devote years of their lives to the mystery. Imagine a retired school teacher spending every spare weekend studying maps and exploring possible sites, or a businessman financing repeated expeditions, or a farmer convinced the treasure lies somewhere on neighboring land. The Beale mystery attracts people from every background, not because they are all treasure hunters, but because they are all curious. And curiosity can be a powerful force. Throughout the 20th century, newspapers occasionally publish stories about new searches. A fresh theory emerges. An excavation begins. Rumors circulate. Public interest briefly increases. Then the search ends without success. The cycle repeats again and again. One particularly fascinating aspect of these searches is how often they rely upon interpretation. Remember, cipher number 1 remains unsolved. Without the location cipher, searchers must make educated guesses. Imagine trying to find a hidden object in an enormous landscape using only fragments of information. Different people naturally reach different conclusions. One investigator focuses on a particular valley, another believes the treasure lies near a river. A third becomes convinced it is hidden within a cave system. All are working from incomplete information. All are attempting to solve a puzzle missing crucial pieces. This uncertainty spreads search efforts across large portions of Virginia. The treasure becomes both everywhere and nowhere, potentially hidden beneath any hillside, potentially absent altogether. The mystery accommodates countless theories. As the decades progress, treasure hunting itself becomes part of American culture. Books are written, clubs are formed, enthusiasts exchange ideas and theories. The Beale mystery earns a permanent place within this world. It becomes one of America's classic treasure legends. Mention hidden treasure, and sooner or later someone mentions Thomas Beale. Imagine attending a gathering of treasure hunters in the 1960s or 1970s. Maps cover the walls. Theories are debated, stories are exchanged. Someone inevitably brings up the Beale ciphers. Immediately, the room becomes engaged. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has a theory. everyone believes they have noticed something others missed. The mystery thrives on such discussions. Because unlike many treasure stories, the Beale mystery remains unresolved. No one can definitively prove another person wrong. No one can definitively prove themselves right. The puzzle remains open, inviting participation, inviting imagination, inviting hope. By the late 20th century, hundreds of searches have likely taken place, perhaps more. Most leave little historical record. Small private expeditions rarely attract widespread attention, yet collectively they represent something remarkable. A century-long effort to solve a mystery. Imagine the cumulative hours invested, the countless maps examined, the thousands of miles traveled, the millions of theories proposed, all directed toward a treasure that may not even exist. And yet people continue searching, not because success is guaranteed, but because possibility remains. As evening settles across Virginia once more, imagine the hills themselves watching these generations come and go. The landscape remains largely unchanged. Trees grow, seasons pass, storms move across the countryside. Meanwhile, treasure hunters arrive, search, depart, and are replaced by others. The mystery endures, patient, silent, untouched, or perhaps carefully concealed. The 20th century draws toward its close. The treasure remains hidden. The ciphers remain largely unread. The debates remain unresolved. Yet a new era is approaching, an era of computers, digital technology, and unprecedented analytical power. Many believe these tools will finally solve the mystery. After all, if generations of human investigators have failed, perhaps machines can succeed. Perhaps technology can reveal patterns invisible to the human eye. Perhaps the answer has been hiding within the ciphers all along, waiting for the right tool, waiting for the right moment, waiting for a new generation of treasure hunters to continue the search. And so the mystery enters the modern age, still unsolved, still fascinating, and still refusing to surrender its secrets. The 21st century arrives with extraordinary confidence. Computers become faster, databases grow larger, information becomes easier to access than at any other time in human history. Problems that once required years of effort can now be analyzed in seconds. Many people begin wondering whether the Beale mystery's days are finally numbered. Surely modern technology can accomplish what generations of treasure hunters could not. Surely computers can break the remaining ciphers. Surely the treasure, if it exists, can finally be found. It seems like a reasonable assumption. After all, technology has transformed countless fields. Astronomers discovered distant planets. Scientists decode genetic information. Historians digitize entire archives. Researchers solve problems once thought impossible. Compared to such achievements, how difficult can a 19th century cipher really be? The answer, surprisingly, is very difficult. Imagine a modern cryptographer sitting before a computer screen. The Beale ciphers have been entered into digital form. Every number, every sequence, every possible pattern. Software begins searching for relationships invisible to the human eye. Millions of calculations occur almost instantly. Potential solutions are tested, theories evaluated, patterns examined. The computer never grows tired, never loses focus, never becomes frustrated. And yet, despite all this computational power, the mystery remains. The ciphers continue resisting solution. Imagine the disappointment. For decades, many enthusiasts believed technology would provide the breakthrough. Instead, the computers largely confirm what earlier investigators already suspected. The puzzle is extraordinarily difficult, perhaps because the wrong key is being used. Perhaps because important information is missing, or perhaps because the ciphers were never intended to be solved at all. The uncertainty persists. As the internet expands, something interesting happens. The Beale mystery finds a new audience. Imagine the early days of online discussion forums. People from around the world gather digitally to share ideas. Researchers compare notes. Treasure hunters exchange theories. Cryptography enthusiasts test new approaches. The mystery that once belonged largely to Virginia now becomes global. Anyone with an internet connection can participate. Anyone can study the ciphers. Anyone can propose a solution. The search enters a new era. Imagine sitting at home late at night. A computer screen glows softly in the darkness. You are reading discussions about the Beale treasure. One person argues the treasure lies near a particular river. Another believes the ciphers conceal geographic coordinates. A third insists the entire story is a hoax. The conversation continues endlessly. The mystery remains alive, perhaps more alive than ever. One reason for this renewed interest is the emergence of advanced analytical tools. Researchers can now compare the ciphers against thousands of books, thousands of documents, thousands of potential keys. Tasks that once required years can be completed in minutes. Imagine feeding the cipher into specialized software. The program tests historical texts automatically. The Bible, government documents, literary works, personal letters, newspapers. The list grows almost endlessly. If a known document serves as the key, surely the computer will find it. Yet once again, the mystery survives. No universally accepted solution emerges. The ciphers remain silent. The treasure remains hidden, or perhaps imaginary. Meanwhile, modern treasure hunters continue exploring Virginia. Only now, they possess tools their predecessors could scarcely imagine. Global positioning systems, digital mapping software, ground-penetrating radar, satellite imagery, drones capable of surveying difficult terrain. The search has become increasingly sophisticated. Imagine standing on a Virginia hillside. A drone rises into the sky. Its camera captures detailed images of the landscape below. Nearby, researchers study digital maps, looking for unusual formations, old roads, forgotten structures, any clue that might suggest a hiding place. The process feels modern, scientific, systematic, yet the underlying motivation remains unchanged. Hope, the possibility that a hidden fortune still waits beneath the earth. Ground-penetrating radar proves especially intriguing. Imagine being able to examine what lies beneath the surface without digging. The technology sends signals into the ground. Reflections reveal buried objects and disturbances, old foundations, hidden chambers, changes in soil composition. Many treasure hunters view such tools as revolutionary. Perhaps they will finally uncover the Beale cache. Yet the landscape remains stubbornly quiet. The treasure, if present, remains elusive. Another fascinating development involves artificial intelligence. Modern systems can analyze enormous quantities of information, detect subtle patterns, generate new theories. Some researchers have begun applying these technologies to the Beale ciphers. Imagine an AI system examining the documents, searching for structures humans may have overlooked, comparing countless possibilities, testing approaches at remarkable speed. The results are intriguing, yet they remain inconclusive. The mystery continues resisting definitive answers. This persistence is remarkable when you think about it. More than 2 centuries have passed since Thomas Beale supposedly buried the treasure. Generations have searched. Technologies have evolved. Entire industries have emerged. And still, no one can say with certainty what happened. The mystery has outlived presidents, wars, economic transformations, technological revolutions. It remains. Imagine how many people have become convinced they were close to solving it. The amateur codebreaker certain he found a pattern. The treasure hunter convinced he located the correct hillside. The historian who believed a forgotten document would reveal the truth. Each approached the mystery with confidence. Each eventually encountered uncertainty. Yet that uncertainty does not discourage everyone. In fact, it often inspires new investigations, because every unsolved mystery creates opportunity. Perhaps previous researchers overlooked something. Perhaps new evidence will emerge. Perhaps the answer is still waiting. Imagine a young researcher discovering the Beale mystery for the first time today. The story feels fresh. The puzzle remains open. The challenge remains available. Nothing prevents a new generation from continuing the search, and many do exactly that. Online communities discuss the ciphers daily. Researchers publish new theories. Treasure hunters organize expeditions. The mystery continues attracting curious minds, not because success is guaranteed, but because success remains possible, at least in theory. One particularly interesting question concerns what would happen if the treasure were actually found. Imagine a group of researchers uncovering a hidden chamber, gold coins gleaming in the light, silver bars stacked carefully, jewels untouched for generations. The discovery would instantly become international news. Historians would celebrate. Treasure hunters would rejoice. The mystery would finally be solved, and yet something would be lost as well. The uncertainty, the speculation, the endless debate, the mystery itself. For more than a century, people have not merely searched for treasure, they have searched for answers. The search has become part of the story, perhaps even more important than the treasure itself. As evening settles once again over the Virginia countryside, the hills remain quiet. The forests sway gently in the wind. The rivers continue following ancient paths toward the sea. Beneath that peaceful landscape, a fortune may be hidden, or perhaps nothing lies there at all. No technology has settled the question. No computer has solved the puzzle completely. The mystery remains balanced between possibility and doubt, and that balance continues drawing people back, again and again. Yet as we move toward the final chapters of our journey, another question awaits. A question perhaps even more fascinating than whether the treasure exists. Why do people continue searching? Why does this mystery still matter after all these years? The answer may reveal something important, not about treasure, not about cryptography, but about human nature itself and the enduring power of a good mystery. As our journey through the Beale Treasure Mystery begins drawing toward its conclusion, let us pause for a moment and step back from the ciphers. Step back from the treasure. Step back from the endless theories and searches. Because after more than 2 centuries of investigation, one question remains surprisingly important. Why does this story continue to fascinate people? Why do generations of treasure hunters, historians, cryptographers, and ordinary readers keep returning to the same mystery? After all, countless treasure legends have faded into obscurity. Countless stories have been forgotten. Yet the Beale mystery endures. Imagine a young person hearing the story for the first time. A hidden fortune, secret codes, a vanished adventurer, an unsolved puzzle. Immediately, the imagination begins working. The details almost seem designed to capture attention. And perhaps that is because the story touches something deeply human: the love of mystery. Human beings are naturally curious creatures. We want answers. We want explanations. When confronted with a puzzle, we instinctively begin searching for solutions. Imagine walking through a forest and discovering a locked chest. Most people would immediately wonder what lies inside. The uncertainty itself becomes irresistible. The Beale mystery functions in much the same way. The treasure may be real. The treasure may not be real. Yet the uncertainty encourages endless curiosity. Imagine sitting beside a fireplace on a quiet evening. Someone begins telling the story. A hidden fortune buried somewhere in Virginia. 3 coded messages, 1 solved, 2 unsolved. The treasure remains unfound. The story practically invites participation. Listeners begin forming theories immediately. Perhaps the treasure lies beneath a hill. Perhaps the codes conceal a different meaning. Perhaps Thomas Beale never existed at all. Everyone becomes part of the mystery, and that may be one reason the legend survives. Unlike many stories, the Beale mystery never truly ends. The audience becomes involved. The audience continues the search. Throughout history, hidden treasure has occupied a special place in human imagination. Ancient kings buried wealth in tombs. Pirates supposedly concealed treasure on remote islands. Lost mines appear in legends around the world. The Beale treasure belongs to this long tradition, yet it differs in one important way. Most treasure stories focus on maps. The Beale story focuses on codes, and codes possess a unique appeal. A buried chest can be found by accident. A secret code requires understanding. It transforms treasure hunting into a mental challenge, a puzzle, a contest between human intelligence and mystery. Imagine staring at the rows of numbers contained in the Beale ciphers. You know they mean something. You know they were created intentionally. The answer exists. The challenge lies in uncovering it. That possibility continues attracting new generations of investigators. Some approach the mystery as mathematicians, others as historians, others simply as dreamers, hoping to solve a centuries-old puzzle. The beauty of the mystery is that it welcomes all of them. Imagine all the people who have searched. The 19th-century codebreaker working by candlelight. The 20th-century treasure hunter carrying maps through Virginia forests. The modern researcher studying digital archives. The cryptographer testing algorithms. The historian examining forgotten records. Each belongs to a long chain of curiosity stretching across generations. Most never find answers, yet they continue searching, because the mystery itself provides a kind of reward, a sense of wonder, a sense of possibility, and perhaps that possibility is more valuable than many people realize. Imagine for a moment that the treasure is discovered tomorrow. A hidden vault is uncovered, the gold is recovered, the silver counted, the jewels displayed. The mystery is finally solved. What happens then? The answer may seem obvious. The search ends, the questions disappear, the puzzle is complete. Yet something else disappears as well. The wonder, the speculation, the countless possibilities, the mystery itself. For more than a century, people have enjoyed asking questions about the Beale treasure. The search has become part of the story, perhaps even more important than the destination. History is filled with examples like this. Mysteries often become larger than their solutions. The search itself becomes meaningful. Imagine explorers searching for lost cities, archaeologists hunting for forgotten civilizations, researchers attempting to decipher ancient languages. Even when answers remain elusive, the pursuit teaches us something about history, about discovery, about ourselves. The Beale mystery offers a similar lesson, not merely about treasure, but about curiosity, about humanity's desire to understand the unknown, and about our willingness to continue searching even when success seems unlikely. As evening settles across Virginia once more, imagine the landscape as it appears today. The rolling hills, the forests, the rivers winding through quiet valleys, the same landscape that inspired generations of treasure hunters, the same landscape where countless searches have taken place, the same landscape where perhaps a hidden fortune still rests beneath the soil, or perhaps not. The hills remain silent. They reveal nothing. They guard their secrets patiently. Imagine standing there at sunset. Golden light spreads across the countryside. Birds drift through the evening sky. A gentle breeze moves through the trees. The scene feels peaceful, timeless. The sort of place where mysteries seem possible. The sort of place where legends feel alive. Somewhere beneath that landscape lies the answer. Whether it is a treasure, a hoax, or something in between, the answer exists. We simply have not found it yet. And perhaps that is enough. Not every mystery needs an immediate solution. Some mysteries endure because they remind us that the world still contains unanswered questions, that history still holds secrets, that wonder remains possible. The Beale Treasure Mystery has survived for more than 200 years because it offers exactly that. A question without a final answer, a puzzle without a completed solution, a story that continues inviting us to imagine. As the sun slips below the horizon, shadows lengthen across the Virginia hills. The forests grow darker, the rivers reflect the fading light, the treasure, if it exists, remains hidden. The ciphers remain largely unread, and the mystery remains very much alive. Yet before we say goodbye to the Beale treasure, there is one final reflection waiting for us. One last quiet journey into the heart of the legend. And there, among the rolling hills of Virginia, we will leave the mystery resting peacefully beneath the stars. And now, as our journey through the Beale Treasure Mystery comes to an end, let us leave behind the questions. For tonight, there is no need to solve the ciphers, no need to search the hills of Virginia, no need to uncover buried gold or hidden silver. The mystery has carried us far enough. Now there is only the quiet landscape where the legend continues to rest. Imagine the Virginia countryside beneath a clear night sky. The sun has long disappeared beyond the western horizon. Darkness settles gently across the rolling hills. The forests stand silent. The rivers move slowly through the valleys. And above it all, countless stars shine in the cool night air. The scene feels peaceful, timeless, almost unchanged from the world Thomas J. Beale supposedly knew. Imagine a traveler standing upon one of those hills more than 200 years ago, perhaps carrying secrets, perhaps carrying nothing more than ordinary hopes and dreams. History rarely gives us certainty. It rarely provides complete answers. Instead, it leaves us fragments, clues, stories, and mysteries. The Beale Treasure Mystery is one of those mysteries. A story suspended between fact and legend, between possibility and doubt, between history and imagination. Perhaps somewhere beneath the Virginia soil a hidden fortune still waits. Gold untouched by human hands, silver resting in darkness, jewels sleeping quietly beneath layers of earth. If so, they have remained hidden through wars, through economic booms and hardships, through the rise of railroads, automobiles, airplanes, and computers. The world changed. The treasure remained, or perhaps there was never any treasure at all. Perhaps the true treasure was the mystery itself, a story passed from one generation to another, a puzzle that encouraged curiosity, a legend that inspired people to wonder. If that is the case, then the Beale mystery may be one of the most successful stories ever told. Imagine all the people who have become part of this journey. The innkeeper Robert Morris, the mysterious Thomas J. Beale, the anonymous codebreakers, the treasure hunters wandering through forests, the historians searching archives, the cryptographers studying rows of numbers late into the night. Most never found what they were looking for, yet each contributed something. They kept the mystery alive, and in doing so, they became part of the story themselves. Imagine a quiet evening in Virginia. A small cabin stands among the trees. A lantern glows softly in the window. The sounds of the modern world are nowhere to be heard. Only the wind, only the distant call of a night bird, only the gentle rustle of leaves moving beneath the stars. It is easy to understand why legends flourish in places like this. The landscape invites imagination. The silence creates space for wonder. The darkness hides possibilities. And somewhere beyond the next hill, perhaps a secret waits, perhaps not. Either way, the mystery remains. As the years continue passing, new generations will discover the Beale treasure. New theories will emerge, new searches will begin. New codebreakers will stare at the same pages of numbers, and the question will remain unchanged. What really happened? The answer may appear tomorrow, or next year, or 100 years from now, or perhaps it will never appear at all. Some mysteries choose to remain mysteries, and that is part of their charm. Not every story needs a final solution. Sometimes the wonder lies in the searching, in the imagining, in the possibility. Imagine once more the hills of Virginia beneath the moonlight. Silver light washes across fields and forests. The rivers reflect the stars. The night feels calm and endless. The treasure, if it exists, sleeps quietly beneath the earth, undisturbed, unclaimed, waiting, or perhaps only the legend remains, a story drifting through time, a whisper carried from one century to the next, a reminder that history still contains unanswered questions, and perhaps always will. Now, as the night grows deeper, allow the mystery to fade gently into the distance. Let the ciphers grow quiet. Let the treasure hunters return home. Let the questions drift away like leaves carried by a slow-moving river. There is nothing left to solve tonight, nothing left to search for, only the peaceful landscape, only the quiet stars, only the soft rhythm of history resting beneath the night sky. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of America's most enduring mysteries. Wherever you may be listening from, I hope this story has brought you a little closer to the past and a little farther from the worries of the present. Until our next journey together, rest well, sleep peacefully, and let the mysteries of history carry you gently into the night. Good night.